Alright guys, so I'm sitting here with a very good friend of mine I want to introduce you to because he has a very fascinating story. And for those of you that caught the first video that I put up a day or two ago and took it back down, I want to explain why I did that. For one, I had a buzz going, I had a couple of beers, and I did a very sloppy interview, if you can call it that. And I felt like I did my friend a disservice and the U.S. military a disservice in the way that I conducted that interview. So I wanted to start over. Let's call this a revised edition. This is my friend Anthony Shades Delgado. It's a very fascinating story I want you guys to hear. There's one thing I want to say before he begins, is this, because you'll hear him just discuss how he fought with foreigners, for lack of a better term, which she'll say better than me. Understand when he fought with foreigners, he represented America. He fought with them as America's allies, and he represented America. So, man, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, Dean. Thanks for the kind words.
Tell the viewers what made you get started. Well, another thing I want to say, because I don't want to keep interrupting during it. Know this: he receives no benefits for his combat experience, and you're gonna understand why. But I know you started off. You're from Brooklyn, New York. And that's where your story begins. Can you take it from there?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Bensonhurst in Brooklyn, New York. Single family household. My mom had issues with drugs and whatnot and mental health. Me and my brothers were removed from the home by Child and Family Services when I was 8. Bounced in and out of different group homes and foster homes and whatnot. Anyway, long story short, I was able to graduate high school at the age of 17. So at the age of 17, I walked into a recruiter's office and I joined the 143rd Logistics Squadron in the U.S. Air Force when I was 17 years old. I enlisted from 96 to 2000, received an honorable discharge. But after my service, adapted to civilian life, working, all kinds of odd jobs, for minimum wage and bouncing out of different relationships and whatnot, what have you. Civilian life, wasn't easy for me. Fast forward to 2015, the world is introduced to what's called the Islamic State. They had taken over vast territories in Syria and Iraq. They were raping and pillaging, mass executions, female sex slaves. They had commandeered a shit ton of U.S. Equipment and light armor from the Iraqi army when the Iraqi army ran away from them when they crossed the border into Iraq. That's a whole other story. And I started following, what was going on in Iraq and Syria and this terrorist group ISIS. Around that time in 2017, I came across a Facebook page called U.S. Veterans Fighting ISIS. So I was intrigued by this. How are U.S. veterans fighting ISIS? And I learned that on the Iraq side of the border, there's a Kurdish group called the Peshmerga, backed by the U.S. supply, trained, equipped, what have you, by the U.S. military, the Kurdish Peshmerga. They were based primarily in Erbil, Iraq. So through a couple of back channels, I made contact with them and asked them if they'd be willing to allow me to go out there and volunteer and fight alongside of them. After I sent them my DD-214 and went through a vetting process, I was invited to go out there. So in 2017, I quit my job, sold my car, and funded myself to head over to Iraq and join the Kurdish Peshmerga. So in 2017, I landed in Erbil, Iraq. I was picked up by some of the militia from the Peshmerga and was escorted from Suleimania to Erbil. We were coached up and outfitted with weapons. The major operation that was going on at that time was the battle for the city of Mosul. The Iraqi army was attacking the city from the south, and the Kurdish Peshmerga was attacking it from the north to clear out the Islamic State stronghold of Mosul. I participated in those operations for about 2.5 months. The city ended up getting cleared out. Our forces were able to set up a defensive position, but mostly pulled back at that point. Now, at that time, the Islamic State still had a stronghold across the border in Syria in the city of Raqqa. They claimed it the home of their so-called caliphate. So what I did was I crossed the border from Iraq into Syria. I linked up with the U.S.-backed Kurdish forces called the YPG, and basically got ready to kick off over in the city of Raqqa. So under the cover of darkness, we crossed the Euphrates River on Zodiacs, built up all of our forces around the city of Raqqa, and launched our offensive into the city of Raqqa. I fought there for about 6 months. Light injuries with hernias, concussions, what have you. Getting deathly ill from drinking contaminated water. Met a couple of good guys out there. But after 6 months of that, I felt, I had done my duty and done my part, and I returned stateside to New Jersey in 2018.
Is it fair to say, well, although you only sustained light injuries, a lot of guys around you lost their lives?
Yeah, two of my guys, Nick Warden and Jack Holmes, I wear their names here on this memorial bracelet. They were part of my team. They were killed in an IED strike during that operation. So we did lose a lot of good guys. Saw a lot of carnage, a lot of suicide bombers who walk up and set off a vest on you, car bombs, down and dirty guerrilla warfare, basically what it was. The only thing that made the difference for us is we had U.S. air power as an asset to hit them with close air support, when we needed it. So that made a huge difference.
So, I mean, you can, during a battle, let's say they're getting the better of you, for a lack of a better term, that air power, an airstrike to keep them in check. You guys can regroup, right?
Absolutely,
That's
100%.
interesting.
Yep.
So, there's an article that catches my eye. By the way, Nick from MRE, he's the cameraman today. Show that article, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of journalists, when I came home from Iraq and Syria, were interested about U.S. veterans going and fighting alongside the Kurds to fight the Islamic State. So I was contacted by a couple of journalists. That's one of the newspapers I was on the front cover on.
What are the other ones? I seen an interview, I think, with a local station from Rhode Island, I think, right?
I did a quick 15-minute documentary with the Asbury Park Press. That's on my YouTube page, Anthony Delgato. And then also there's a full-length documentary that's about an hour and a half long called Haval, Heval, which means friend in Kurdish.
Yes.
So that's a full-length documentary that's on Tubi about us and what we did over in Iraq and Syria.
Can we ask you about the flags now? Or which one should we begin with? Because the last time we spoke, we began with this one, which led to that one. I don't know if that matters.
Yeah, this is Blackbeard's original flag. This is what he used to fly.
Blackbeard the pirate.
Blackbeard the pirate. A lot of elite operators from around the world, from multiple different countries, use this flag and this insignia kind of like as morale patches. When we're on deployment, we all switch flags back and forth or whatever, kind of as parting gifts or whatnot. But Blackbeard's definitely the most popular. He's known as a conqueror, and his saying was, no quarter, no mercy. So.
And you guys would exchange. You could have an enemy's weapon or something and trade it for some others.
Yeah, trophy guns are good to trade. When you're over there, whatever. But ultimately you can't bring them back home. So I mean, you can hold on to them over there, but you're not gonna make it back with it anyway.
So I met you after your deployment there, and then I didn't see you for a while. Nick, can you capture that flag over there? And Anthony, what's the bottom flag?
Well, we always fly Old Glory over anything because that's the most important flag. But underneath it is the flag of Ukraine.
Why is that there?
Well, the story continues. After returning from Syria in 2018, I had met a girl Relocated from New Jersey to Fall River, Massachusetts. I became a personal trainer at one of the fitness clubs over in Fall River. Things didn't work out with that person. I ended up meeting another female that lives in the Dartmouth area and starting a new relationship and becoming engaged to her. I was promoted to general manager at the Workout World at the Dartmouth Mall. I had a staff of 15. I had a beautiful 2018 Nissan Pathfinder all tricked out. And
Was you adjusting to civilian life a little better?
I thought I was adjusting to civilian life, you know, because I had this job, you know, I was successful at work. I had a staff of 15. I had a fiance. She had children. I got 2 beautiful dogs, Drago and Bronson, and we have a big swimming pool in the backyard and everything. So basically, I really should have been content, but I wasn't. I always had this itch in the back of my head, and sure enough, the opportunity arose when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022 and crossed that border.
Is it fair to say you missed the camaraderie with the soldiers, I'm guessing, right? I've always heard that.
Missing the
'Cause
camaraderie.
you don't find that here in the States with a lot of generic relationships that you find in America. I'm not saying everybody here is phony, but there's nothing like a combat experience with somebody. That's I can't imagine anything can top that as far as camaraderie goes, right?
Yeah, I mean, the camaraderie is incredible. You know, you serving this purpose, operating and having access to weapons and vehicles and equipment that, you know, you would never be able to access here, you know, in the States and whatnot. So it's those things that you become to miss, even though you're successful and you're on a roll and your life's great. You know, sometimes it feels like you're just missing something. You're missing what you're supposed to be doing.
And so Russia attacked Ukraine, and what was your thoughts after that?
Well, so I'm 45 years old. You know, I grew up, you know, in the 80s and 90s during the Cold War era. And, you know, we all remember, you know, the propaganda when we went to school about how Russia was evil.
The Great Red Scare.
And you know, the axis of evil and, you know, like, you know, the evil empire or whatever. You know, you just watch Rocky IV and Rambo 2, you know, and you see the Russians as the villains.
Yeah.
But bottom line, Russia invaded Ukraine. It was a sovereign territory. It had been a sovereign territory for over 30 years by that point. Its own nation. They have their own language, their own cultures, and they are pro-Western. And that's what the issue is, you know, as far as Putin invading. He doesn't want another NATO ally right on his doorstep.
Can I interject one more time? Because just for the sake of history purposes. Now, was it after World War II where they became a part of USSR? Did they take Russia? Did Russia incorporate Ukraine by force at that time? Because I know they were part of Russia before.
What happened was it was always part of Russia. What happened was when the Germans decided to try to take over all of Eastern Europe, and they almost took Russia. They're about 20 miles outside of Moscow, and they got to a city called Stalingrad. And that was
St. Petersburg now, I think. No, I could be wrong. Let me not interrupt you again.
And
they changed the name of
Stalingrad.
Yeah.
And so the Russians were on their heels, but they managed to push back. When they pushed back, they got Ukraine, they got Poland, you know, they got, you know, Yugoslavia, all these places that they had taken control of. And when it was over for, you know, the Nazis and World War II had come to an end, Russia basically wanted to keep every country that, you know, they pushed, you know, the Nazis out of.
Right.
And build it into the Soviet bloc and what was called the USSR.
And knowing all that history, I guess, probably played a role in you deciding you wanted to go, well, I can't speak for you. I'd like to know what made you decide to go, well, maybe you've already said it, there's something in the back of your mind itching, not necessarily for war, but itching to maybe help push the bullies back out of Ukraine, for lack of a better term, maybe?
Yeah, basically, I felt like the Ukrainians were being bullied. Russia was evil. They were attacking the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians were the good guys, and Russia was the bad guys. And they are very pro-Western. They love America there, and I just didn't want to see these innocent people getting raped and pillaged again. Last time it was the Islamic State. Now it's groups like Wagner and
another interesting story.
The conscripts that the Russians were using. They were unprofessional soldiers. They were raping, they were pillaging, mass executions. I was seeing it all over again. Now, guys that I served in Iraq and Syria were also had already left and joined the Ukrainian army. So it was like thinking to myself like, the good old days. Let's make it happen again. Again, I sold my truck. I resigned from my job last year. I was only going to commit to a 6-month contract in the Ukrainian army. I landed in Krakow, Poland. I took a bus from the Medica border crossing to the Ukrainian border. I crossed the Ukrainian border. Not too far from the Ukrainian customs office is a Ukrainian military recruiting station. I walked in with all my gear and my U.S. passport, my DD-214, and they already knew why I was there. They gave me, kisses and hugs, and scanned my passport, did a quick, background check, did some, security questions, and off I went.
Wow.
Many Westerners came and helped also, correct?
Yes, there were a lot of Westerners there. There were, at the time that I was there were 500 plus American veterans on the ground amongst the ranks of the Ukrainian army.
Combat veterans. If you didn't say that word, that's what you mean, right? Obviously. Well, some of them
Majority of them combat veterans.
There was probably some guys, I imagine, who missed a chance to serve in combat in other theaters maybe and decided that was their chance to, right?
I've come across that situation a lot as well.
The Wagner group you're talking about, I watched a documentary about them. They're like a private military force for Putin, let's call it. Those guys, they pulled a lot of them out of the penitentiaries over there, didn't they?
Yeah, they basically, Prigozhin was the leader, founder of Wagner. He basically got the green light from the Russian Federation to go to prisons and allow the inmates to make a choice, 6 months serving with Wagner, and they could be pardoned. And almost every prisoner went for it. They're like more or less like mercenaries. I've read about them in various countries like Africa. Like people can hire them as mercenaries. They come in, right? I mean, they're a brutal group, but in any event. You got that one video of them bashing the guy to death with the sledgehammer.
Yeah, I seen that video. Before I forget, so the sites that you've been, where else can people view?
YouTube. You have a YouTube channel, correct?
Yes, I have a YouTube channel. It's Anthony Delgatto, so ANTHONY DELGATTO. You just pull my name up on YouTube. I got a lot of good GoPro footage from Iraq, Syria, and Ukraine on there. And of course, I like to mix my, little thumping music in the background. We all like to put these videos together or whatever. But there were a lot of times when I wasn't able to even mount my camera and even switch it on, period, because things were that serious. But there were a few things that I ended up being able to catch.
Another thing I wanted to say in regards to this is, I think I said it earlier, is Anthony receives no benefits serving his country over there under their flag, if that's the right way to say it. So, anyone feeling generous enough to help this gentleman out, I'm asking, not him. Because, listen, he came back here and it's a struggle for him. Do you receive military benefits from that? No, just from.
No, I had a very hard landing when I returned from Ukraine 10 months ago. I was no longer welcome in the house with my fiance anymore. She had left me. I had sold my truck to give her money for the mortgage and fund my flights to Ukraine. Unfortunately, the Ukrainian army never deposited any money in my account for our monthly pay. The whole time I was there. My father died my first month out. I was injured my third month out. And I stuck it out for 9 months, 3 months over my contract. Anyhow, since returning stateside, I didn't have a place to go. I had never established a service connection with the Department of Veteran Affairs. So being I was stuck when I came home from Ukraine 10 months ago, I contacted the VA. They started the service connection process. It's a very long, drawn-out process with a bunch of paperwork and going back and forth and evaluations, et cetera. I was able to obtain a bed at the Veterans Transitional House in New Bedford.
Yeah, here you sit in a strange city for you, more or less, miles away from you. That's incredible.
So I was able to get a bed through the Veterans Transition House. The employment specialist was able to find me a job at Titleist. It was fantastic. I was glad to be working again. I worked there for 7 months. 6 weeks ago, the HR department contacted me and let me know that they would be laying me off because they had to get rid of 16 people, and I was all on a totem pole. So
I find it amazing, after your service, that you wouldn't be considered. Jeez, I don't have to go.
It was a bad hit, but you know.
You didn't do it for money. You did it for your principles and everything else. But still, jeez.
I mean, right now, financially, I am struggling bad. Before anyone would even consider, helping out with a couple of bucks, the first thing, priority number one, is if you have a company or you have a person that's willing to employ me and give me a shot at a job, I would greatly appreciate that. I don't have a vehicle, so it would have to be in the Fairhaven, New Bedford, Dartmouth, Westport area. But if anyone even has like a job lead or whatever, that would suffice or whatever.
And I will be linking his channel, and I'll be sharing it on my channel, his YouTube channel.
Clearly, he has a level of dedication that's through the roof. So if you're hiring this gentleman, I imagine the same amount of dedication he has towards other things he put towards his employment. So you'd be doing yourself a service hiring him, right? Jeez, that's how I see it.
Yeah, I just, I'm struggling with the simple things like paying my phone bill, paying for my Wi-Fi. If I have to take Ubers to like job interviews and stuff like that or whatever, I'm struggling with that. So that's where like the cash assistance or like donations would help in regards to that. But I'm definitely willing to work.
Your relationship is what brought you to this region, right? Of the country, I imagine. And that didn't work out. And here you sit, which I find amazing, in this city, unfamiliar territory. None of his friends are here or anything. Probably the closest friend is me and from Rhode Island, if I'm not mistaken. There might be somebody else around here, but I don't. I mean, that's got to be, what quite the experience. You serve your country, you come home, and you land in a city financially strapped in an unfamiliar territory. Can you imagine this? Wow. I probably, that's not even scratching the surface. In any event, what have we missed, Nick? You talked about that Ukrainian flag, which was that presented to you by anybody in particular?
Yeah, that was given to me by my commander, call sign Jeffrey, for 1st Battalion Charlie Company, 3rd Platoon. She presented me with that flag before I left. I also have dual citizenship now with Ukraine. Not that matters. I'm never going back there again or whatever.
But I know what I found interesting as well, because I had asked you before, what was it like to communicate? There are a lot of foreign-speaking soldiers, right? They're all Ukrainian, and so you had a device that helped you interpret.
I didn't learn to speak Ukrainian very well, but a lot of the Ukrainians A good handful of them actually spoke English. So there was that, and then we used an application called Say Hi Translate, and we would connect that Bluetooth with our earbuds or whatever, and it would basically just sound off what they were saying to us through this application.
What about drones? Have you did you see any drones?
Oh, wait a minute, hold on now. That's something we forgot. Drones, you're talking. Let's touch on the drones, shall we?
So I was assigned to 1st Battalion Charlie Company 3rd Platoon, which is a light infantry drone unit. We were a special team of about 8 guys. We used Mavics for reconnaissance, Mavic 3s to drop fire grenades, and FPVs to launch heavy ordnance such as RPG warheads and other high explosives. So that's the job that we had. I was forward deployed to a city called Petrovsky in Ukraine, probably about 20 miles from the Russian border, and it was down and dirty, and it made Iraq and Syria seem like a day spot.
So to elaborate a drone, you could spot enemies probably trying to, creep towards you guys, for lack of a better term, right? Like you would spot them, right? And,
Yeah.
so you're actually saving the lives of soldiers by spotting these guys, who otherwise you without the drones, which is part of warfare nowadays, I suppose.
Yeah,
I find that fascinating.
My drone team had 3 different types of drones. I operated the Mavic for reconnaissance. Once I spotted the Russians, I would call my bird back. We'd launch the Mavic 3. Another guy on the team, and it would have VOD grenades, so we soften up the targets by dropping grenades on them. And then our squad leader was in control of the FPV, which had heavy ordnance, which is primarily used on Russian armor, the BMPs and T-72s, what have you. However, if you see a bunch of Russians grouped up in a trench, that's a juicy target, so you're going to use the FPV on them.
And let's not confuse it, not confuse it, but not only did he operate a drone, but he also, there was combat experience as well over there in Ukraine.
Yeah, because the drones only have a certain distance on them, so you want to get as close as to whatever area of operations that you're assaulting in. So your initial setup would be to storm a trench that's occupied by the Russians, clear it out.
Which you took part in.
Yep, clear it out, set up a defensive position, and then start launching your drones.
The funny thing is, I've been sitting home watching a lot of these GoPro YouTube videos of Ukraine. It was probably watching him do his thing without even realizing it was him. It's fascinating now to be so up close and personal from your home and watching war take place. I mean, I don't want to say up close and personal because you're sitting in your parlor, but I'm watching these guys doing military operations from their helmet cam. I mean, that's really amazing. I mean, geez, not everybody's into war, and if you're a viewer who's not into war, well, we can put that aside. This man felt he went over there and did the right thing, not only for his country, but for their country, because he didn't like what he was seeing over there. I mean, how can you not be impressed with that? So what other loose things can we tackle, Nick? What do you
I'd like to thank him for his service, number one, for fighting for our country. Thank you.
I appreciate you.
You're a historian, you're a history buff. You got any questions for him?
Well, like I was telling him, I love the Edward Teach Blackbird flag, and I also, when I was with the drones, they also would come down. I would see videos of the Russian soldiers like dodging out of the way. They would hit them like bees and slam into them.
Yeah, basically, they're kamikaze drones. The FPVs, are relatively inexpensive. They're about $3,000 US. The Mavics are about $3,000 US, but the FPVs, those are bigger drones that carry heavier ordnance, and those can go up into the tens of thousands. And they're very effective. They are the future of warfare. We called Ukraine World War II with tech. And that's basically the best way to describe it. So the drones are definitely a game changer.
Do you have any other artifacts or anything you can share or anything? I don't care if it's a keychain, anything?
All my equipment and gear from Ukraine, my military ID from Ukraine is being displayed in the War Museum at Fort Tabor. So if you ever want to take a ride out on the weekend to the Military Museum in New Bedford at Fort Tabor, you can go in there and you'll see everything from Vietnam, the World War II era, the Global War on Terror, whatever, and then they sectioned off a little section for me as an American veteran, and they're displaying my uniform and helmet and whatnot in the museum of Fort Tabor.
Is there any particular experience or battle that stands out to you among all the other experiences over there that you could share?
From Ukraine?
Yeah, or from any of them, I guess, from any of those.
Well, I mean, one ironic thing of it is when we were in Ukraine and we were moving out to a certain position, we were coming across a small number of civilians that were pro-Russian, and what they would do is you know, you're hungry, you're tired, and whatnot, and they come out, you know, with their hands, you know, like, oh, like, thank you for being here, and I'll give you food and I'll poison you.
Wow.
My God.
And then
well, give the enemy your position.
Now you start falling out.
Wow.
So we located the location of one of these collaborators. We handled it amongst ourselves. The MPs should have been the one to deal with it, but we handled it ourselves. And we went and we burnt them out of their house. We didn't kill them, but you know, we burnt their house down for doing that.
So you could be fatigued from days of who knows what, but you still would have to refuse that phony assistance that they're trying to present to you as food or whatever.
You'll take it, not to be rude or whatever, but you gotta toss it.
And you're watching your back as you do it. That's really something. My God.
But you would kind of figure out what side they were on, because if their television antennas were facing towards the east, which was the Russian border, they're watching Russian TV.
I like that.
So they're
interesting.
They're getting all this false propaganda and everything and becoming like pro-Putin. But there were very, very few of them. But you know, that was kind of a shock, you know, encountering that.
Want to share your Cash App where you're at? I know you probably, you know, I want him to share his Cash App for those of you that. You know.
I will link it in the description, and I'll link in the description.
I think that you know, what we would like is for people to like and comment and start following, and I already know I'm going to get a lot of viewers that are going to try to inbox me and ask me how they can go to Ukraine and join the Ukrainian army. Anybody that wanted assistance in something like that, I would have to have long, deep conversations with, so they fully understand what they're getting themselves into. All I can tell you though is, if you have not been in the military, you do not belong in Ukraine. Period. Don't do it. Find something else that gives you meaning. You know, get your kicks off doing something else, but it's not a game. It's not a video game. It's reality. As of this date, today, from what I understand, we've lost 78 American veterans in Ukraine that have been killed in action. Only half of them are actually, less than half of them were actually recovered and even returned home stateside. So it's serious business. It's something that it's only, you know, you really have to be cut out for it to even attempt it.
Nick, you got any last questions?
I would just say I'll be sharing his channel on my channel, his YouTube channel. Give him some support.
And on that note, I want to thank him personally for his service and for being a good friend as well.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate you, man.
And thank you
You guys
for your
enjoyed
service.
this video, and who knows, maybe there's a follow-up or something. Or he has his own channel. You guys can reach him on anyway. So, and there it is. A very fascinating story.